Hello, welcome to New Movie Monday. Oh, it's guys really odd trying to remember to say that. I have to train myself too. But guys, brand new movie, and guess what it is? Well, your title should tell you what it is. It is Day of the Triffids, 1962. I was given instructions to watch this movie, and so I did. And I had a good time with it. We had a watch party for the Night of the Comet, and there are so many similarities between this movie and the Night of the Comet. I can't help but think that this was the inspiration for that movie. The first things right off the bat, there's a narration in this movie, just like it is in the Night of the Comet. Does not mean that that's the only thing. There's lots and lots of details, and I'll describe them as I continue on. The first thing I'd like to say is that this is actually a lot of fun. This movie was a lot of fun for me to watch. It was the pacing was great. There was a lot of fear in the horror aspect of it all. It wasn't a psychological thriller, but it had a lot of dilemmas in it. Yeah, definitely going to get into all of that. So just to give you a little bit of a background of the story or a little background about the movie, The Day of the Triffids is a 1963 British science fiction horror film in CinemaScope and Eastman Color, produced by George Pitcher and Philip Jordan, and directed by Steve Seekley and Freddie Francis. It stars Howard Neal and Nicole Morey. It's loosely based on the 1951 novel of the same name by John Wyndham. The film was released in the UK by the Rank organization and in the US under Allied Artists. So the plot really is a meteor shower blinds most people in the world and at the same time spreads triffid plant spores which quickly become animated and begin to eat human beings. Not just to eat them, but also terrorize them. Now, the triffid is actually a fictional carnivorous plant species created by John Wyndham in his novel. The word triffid has become a common reference in British English to describe large, invasive, or menacing-looking plants. So the story starts off with a character by the name of Mason who has just received a very delicate eye surgery. And he's recovering on the night of the meteor showers, in which everyone is so excited to see, just like in the Night of the Comet. They're like going out to specifically look at this spectacle. There are a few people who are not interested in the spectacle, and they don't partake. And those people are spared the brutal awakening of the fact that the all of these people who have witnessed the meteor shower has become blinded by the light emitted from that shower. It's pretty interesting because the way they portray all of the people who are blind is quite interesting. They are very manic. They are very upset, which makes sense, right? And of course, wanting to get in contact with someone who can see to help guide them around or to guide them to safety. It's very scary for something like that to happen suddenly. And so you know that you understand and you can identify with the panic of how these people are feeling at this point in time in the story. It's really interesting because in A Night of the Comet, we have the people who were partially exposed to this became zombies, whereas the people who were fully exposed to the comet were disintegrated into dust. So there's a lot of subtle like changes, but also similarities. I love that there is no one to help many of these people, and anyone they can find that can help, they are just like they grab onto them and they don't want to let them go. Please help me! Please help me! I can't see anything. It's really quite shocking um, and intriguing too. I've never seen anything like this. This is very unique and also understandable, absolutely understandable. So I love that facet of the story. There's also a couple that start off the story kind of at odds with each other. We have this man who is he's an alcoholic, if you will, and he is also abusive to his wife, and they are kind of navigating each other. And this woman is like, she's pretty much a saint, and she's trying to help him through this tough time, but he is very abusive to her, especially in the beginning. He eases up and they kind of find their way back to each other by the end. But it's kind of interesting that they would have a character like this in this movie, and he's not a villain. He's just a guy who's mixed up. So, an interesting story plot piece with these two characters. I'm not sure if this would fly today. I think today they would make the husband irredeemable and to the point where he has to die in order to go on with the story. But I think it was done and handled well here. He's been abusive to a certain degree, but he it has takes it on a different attitude by the end. And so yeah, that's something different. That is something different. I don't know how anyone else feels about that. If you guys have seen this and you feel as if this was okay, let me know. I could be reading this completely wrong. It isn't a perfect relationship even afterwards, but though there is something going on that's never addressed in the story, is what I'm saying. I don't know, like, how you could address it in a future, like, adaptation. But, while they're doing what they're doing, there's also these plants. I believe because of the meteor showers, they are getting certain growth factors that happen that increases their growth. They actually show you these plants growing. It's really remarkable to see the special effect. It's not bad. I would have preferred the design of the flowers to be a little bit more appetizing or pleasing. So maybe, oh, it gets you in a little closer with the scent, and before you know it, you're snapped up. And also another plant that they could have easily used was a Venus flytrap. Um, but that's up for debate. This particular plant is, as I described before, a make-believe plant, and it grows to this enormous size that it is able to get up, get its roots up, and walk around and actually hunt prey. And what they've decided, or what they've figured out during this film, is that the Triffids use hearing to determine where people are that they need to devour, which is quite interesting because now we're talking about a whole nother grouping of movies that use hearing as a sensitive point uh, for aliens or creatures that could come get humans, right? So there's A Quiet Place, right? That movie had a lot to do with about sound. Don't make a sound, and this is very creative, very creative. There's a few scenes in here that kind of remind me of War of the Worlds, especially the remake, and kind of seeing this creature. The rear view window is very, very spooky, and also just makes you tremble. the idea that they're that close. They are that close and they're about to get you. It's very nicely done. There's also a lot of moments where the Triffids are attacking locations. They're busting into buildings. They're bursting into doors. They're uh, actively going out and seeking humans inside of different places. And it's really scary because they just come through and they are very strong. They're very strong. They come through they come up from the ground, they come up from the doors, the windows, everything. It's just incredible the way they're able to just sort of get into different spaces. And humans, of course, are just simply not equipped for this. This is just definitely a bad situation for most humans. Mason meets a little girl. She is so sweet. Let me find out what her name is really quickly. Her name is Susan, and she's an orphan. So he becomes her surrogate father in a way, trying to guard her and keep her safe. And this becomes a theme throughout the story. A lot of people have used this as a trope, and I noticed they call it the Mandalorian trope, but it's a trope that's been used for a very long time. It's definitely the baby cub syndrome. We're trying to make sure that the baby cub is okay. And I love it. I love it so much because it inserts a bit of humanity into the human characters, that it's not just about the panic and not just about the monsters being threatening. It's also about the characters becoming heroes and looking after one another, using their intellect the best that they can to survive. Now, there's also a dilemma I talked to you about before. The biggest dilemma is, do we stay and take care of the blind, or do we go and get help? It gets a lot of pushback. There's some people who are for it. There's some people not for it. The young lady that's in the story here, let me get her name. Oh, wow, I don't have a name for her. Okay, her name is Mrs. Crocker. And Mrs. Crocker is very dedicated to the people in her chateau, where she's like, "Hey, look, we're not leaving these people behind." But somehow she ends up having to escape with Mason and Susan, and it becomes sort of like they become a family in a way, of people who have been snatched out of their world and forced together this effort for survival. At some point during the story, they all get surrounded by these Triffids, and they are intimidating. They're closing in fast, and even after being completely inundated with fire, these creatures are still able to regenerate themselves and attack. So yeah, it's not it's not an easy fight for survival. Now, the couple that I mentioned to you before, these guys have been sort of closed in in their living space and have battled with the Triffids a couple of times before. And while they're doing that, they are also trying to figure out a cure for this problem, or possibly a solution of a way to kill these creatures. And it doesn't quite work. It takes a little longer, and suddenly the creatures decide, we've had enough with these two, we're getting them right now. It's really scary because they are just ambushed. They do everything in their power to stay alive. And so, as a last resort, the husband pulls out a hose, and he thinks that he's just hosing them with water, perhaps, at the cost of getting them over wet. That might work. It actually works. It repels them, and then suddenly there's green smoke that comes up, and it looks like it is dissolving these creatures. It's not just regular water that's coming out of the hose, it's seawater. or salt water. So that is the only way to destroy these creatures. In the Night of the Comet or Night of the Comet, they and look, day of the Triffids, night of the comet. Just saying, day and night. And so and it rains, and so that washes away all of the red dust that had settled in the Night of the Comet. So there's some subtle differences and subtle changes, but also many similarities. Love that. I love that they used this movie as such a inspiration. And I want to thank Joseph Begay for tuning me into this movie, because I really do love this this movie. It's old. It's an older movie. It's simple, but just really well done. I enjoyed it. Yeah, so that's the end of the story, and so they found the cure, and it's really good. It's a really short movie. What is like an hour and 30 minutes. Very nice. I have some notes here. Let me see what I say. Yeah, their decision to leave the group of blind people was definitely a hard thing to do, because they knew that they didn't have a chance, because as soon as they left, they the Triffids was closing in on them and was going to devour them. So they basically were going to die too. So they had to leave. So I love that aspect, like asking those questions, but also making it really obvious that they didn't really have a choice. Um, the other thing I want to mention was the music. Now, the music was very spare, very, it was very much a very naked production, if you will, when it comes to music. But when there was music, it was outstanding. It was really big, bold, definitely felt that feeling of fear, of the unknown. It had all the spooky elements in a horror movie that you would expect in a score, and it was very immersive in that way. They slow down the pacing for moments of tension and to instill that feeling of fear in the slowness, in the like, okay, we don't know what's around this corner. What could it be? The little sounds that you hear when something is encroaching upon you, uh, they played into that too. So I did love all of the little aspects that they had for this particular, they like inserted into this film. Eh, is it like the best film ever? Of course not. This is definitely not. um, Let me see what I would give this as a score. All right, I would give this a 7.6. It's really good for its time. I think the plant creatures could have had a different design, something a little bit more pleasing or even more terrifying. The way they were shaped, it was sometimes very difficult to see what was going on or tell what was going on, what they were doing. Um, at one point, they were able to shoot darts at people, and then they stopped being able to do that. Just some consistencies there would be really great. The acting was on point. That little girl was fantastic. Let's see, who is she played by? Susan was played by Jania Faye. Excellent job. She did a fantastic job doing this. And then the couple as well. The main actor, Bill Mason, was played by Howard Keel. The young lady that is accompanying them, maybe Nicole Maury, uh, who was a French actress who played in 65 film and television productions between 1945 and 1997. Woo, she worked. And let's see. This is the remake that was made, I believe, in 2009. I'm not sure if I want to see it, but if anyone has seen it, please leave me a little comment. Let me know if you've seen this one. Let's see if I can get a picture of Nicole Maury. Let's see if we can find a picture of Nicole Maury. Okay, yes, this is Nicole Maury, the sort of mother or Eve in this situation where she is. They are starting off as these guys don't have families, and now all of a sudden they have a family. Very cool. And maybe there's a commentary about that, about these individuals who are estranged from family, and then all of a sudden they're in this sort of little cozy little mix of people here. Same thing happens at the end of Night of the Comet. They all kind of make a little kind of strange family together, right? Mom, dad, and we've got the auntie and the two little kids. So yeah, definitely feeling like there was a lot of things in common with Night of the Comet. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. This movie was suggested to me by Joseph Begay, and liking it very much. I did love it. I think I am inclined to take a look at the remake just to see how they pulled that one off, to see if if they made any changes to the story, if they carried over any of the dilemmas that we talked about, how they performed the special effects, if did they improve on the creatures at all. This is great. I had such a blast watching this film, and I am so thankful that you guys have been always suggesting these awesome movies to me. Thanks, Joseph Piquet, for suggesting this one, especially in relation to Night of the Comet. How great was it to see the similarity, and yeah, I should really use this one as a deep dive one day, because there's so many little pieces to this that I'd like to pick apart. Anyway, I hope you're having a wonderful day, guys, and I will see you in the next video, wherever that may come from. Thank you very much.